This story is part of a new collection about the women of the American Revolution. These women were not included in the original book, but their courage, sacrifice, and service to the cause of American independence deserve to be remembered and shared. Women of the American Revolution.
Mary Katharine Goddard.
The printer who put the signers' names before America.
In January 1777, the American Revolution still hung in the balance. The Continental Army had won badly needed victories at Trenton and Princeton, but Great Britain remained the most powerful empire on earth. The men who had signed the Declaration of Independence could still be captured and executed as traitors.
Then, from a printing shop in Baltimore, a woman placed their names before the country and the world. At the bottom of the document, she placed her own name as well, printed by Mary Katharine Goddard. She did not write the Declaration, and she did not sign it as a delegate. Her achievement was different, but essential. She transformed the Declaration from a statement whose signers were largely hidden from the public into an authenticated record of national courage. That alone would earn her a place in American history. Yet her service to the Revolution went much further. Mary Katharine Goddard was born in Connecticut on June 16, 1738. Her father, Giles Goddard, was a physician and postmaster. Her mother, Sarah Updike Goddard, was unusually well educated for the period and taught her children the habits of careful work.
Mary's younger brother, William, entered the printing business, but printing soon became a family enterprise. After Giles died, Sarah and Mary joined William in Providence, Rhode Island, where they helped establish the Providence Gazette. Printing in the 18th century required strength, patience, and precision. Every line had to be assembled by hand from individual pieces of metal type.
Ink was applied to the type, paper was positioned, and each sheet was pressed separately. A misplaced letter could alter the meaning of a sentence. A missed delivery could leave an entire town without important news. Mary learned typesetting, bookkeeping, editing, shop management, and the complicated business of obtaining paper and ink. These were not decorative accomplishments.
They were the skills that later allowed her to serve a nation at war. The Goddard family moved its printing work first to Philadelphia and then to Baltimore. William began the Maryland Journal and Baltimore Advertiser, Baltimore's first newspaper, in 1773. Mary arrived the following year and took control of the daily operation. By May 1775, the newspaper's colophon openly stated that it was published by M.K. Goddard. While her brother traveled and pursued other projects, Mary kept the press operating. The timing could not have been more important. Fighting began at Lexington and Concord in April 1775. Americans needed reliable reports about battles, congressional decisions, British policies, trade, and local affairs. Goddard's newspaper carried that information. In July 1776, the Maryland Journal printed the newly adopted Declaration of Independence for its readers.
During much of the war, hers was Baltimore's only newspaper. Goddard was a patriot, but she also respected the independence of the press. In 1777, she printed anonymous contributions that some Baltimore patriots considered too friendly toward the Loyalist position. When local political leaders demanded the author's identity, she refused to surrender it. Her decision did not mean that she supported Britain. It meant she understood that a free country needed printers who would not simply bow to an angry crowd. The Revolution was being fought for ordered liberty, and Goddard practiced that principle in her own shop. Keeping a newspaper alive during wartime was difficult. Imported supplies were scarce, paper was expensive, transportation was unreliable, and money constantly lost value. Goddard nevertheless maintained publication. Each issue helped connect Baltimore with the larger struggle and gave citizens a record of the events through which they were living.
Late in 1776, British pressure forced the Continental Congress to leave Philadelphia and meet in Baltimore. Congress sat there from December 20th, 1776, until early March 1777. The moment was dangerous, but Washington's victories at Trenton and Princeton restored confidence. Congress decided that the names attached to the Declaration should be made public and preserved by every state. On January 18, 1777, Congress ordered authenticated copies of the Declaration, including the names of the members who had subscribed it, to be sent to the states and entered into their official records. Mary Katharine Goddard received the responsibility for printing those copies. The document she produced is now called the Goddard Broadside. Earlier printed versions had carried the Declaration's words, but not the full public list of signers. Goddard carefully set the text in 2 columns and arranged the names beneath it. Thomas McKean's name was absent because his signature was added later, but the other names appeared for citizens, governors, legislatures, and enemies to see. This was not ordinary job printing. The Declaration announced that the colonies were free and independent states. Its signers pledged their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor to that cause.
By printing their identities, Goddard helped convert a revolutionary proclamation into a permanent public record of responsibility. The signers could no longer be imagined as an anonymous body. They stood before history by name. Goddard also accepted responsibility. At the bottom, she printed her full name and the city where the work had been done.
She was not claiming authorship or adding herself to the signers. She was certifying the workmanship and standing behind the document. Only a small number of these broadsides survive, but their importance is immense. Through her press, the Declaration entered state archives in the form Congress intended. Her broadside also reveals the meaning of union before the Constitution.
Congress did not want copies displayed in Baltimore or Philadelphia. It ordered 1 sent to every state, so the Declaration could be entered into records. Goddard's press therefore served all 13 states, not simply Maryland.
Her work helped preserve a common statement of American purpose at a time when the states were joined by war, sacrifice, and an uncertain hope of victory. Printing was only half of Goddard's wartime service. In 1775, she became Baltimore's postmaster, making her one of the earliest women to hold such an important postal position in America. Newspapers, personal letters, government orders, military reports, and commercial information all traveled through the postal system. In a scattered young country, the mail was part of the Revolution's lifeline. Goddard later explained that the post office brought little profit during the darkest years.
At her own risk, she advanced hard money to pay post riders when dependable currency was difficult to obtain. She received and forwarded mail, kept accounts, coordinated riders, and helped maintain communications for more than 14 years. Her labor was quiet compared with a battlefield charge, but armies and governments cannot function without trustworthy information. Goddard helped ensure that messages continued moving when the new nation could least afford silence. Her newspaper work under her own name ended in 1784 when William resumed control of the Maryland Journal. Mary continued as postmaster and operated a bookshop and stationery business. She had built a reputation for accuracy, reliability, and independence in a trade dominated by men. In 1789, the new federal postmaster general, Samuel Osgood, replaced Goddard. Officials argued that the reorganized position required travel that could not be expected of a woman. No misconduct was charged against her.
Between 200 and 300 Baltimore merchants and residents supported her effort to remain in office. Goddard appealed directly to President George Washington, explaining that she had sustained the post office when it offered little reward. Washington declined to interfere with the Postmaster General's appointment. The decision ended her public service, but not her independence. She continued operating her shop until about 1809 or 1810. When she died in Baltimore on August 12, 1816, her will freed Belinda Starling, whom Goddard had enslaved, and left her the property remaining in the estate. That final act does not remove the contradiction of enslavement, but it belongs in the complete record of Goddard's life. Mary Katharine Goddard mattered to the American Revolution because independence required more than generals and statesmen. It required skilled citizens who could print laws, distribute news, preserve public records, carry messages, and risk their own resources when government systems were fragile. Goddard performed every one of those duties.
Her name appears on the Declaration not as a signer, but as the printer who accepted responsibility for presenting the signers to America. She gave the founding document a public face and helped carry the words of independence across the new nation. When Americans remember the courage behind the Declaration, Mary Katharine Goddard deserves to stand beside the press that helped make that courage known.